You know when you find yourself in a really frustrating argument with someone, like, say, a coworker or a partner, the default human instinct is just to reach for logic.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? You think if I just lay out the facts, if I show them the evidence, the text messages, the receipt, they will finally see my point. I mean, it's basically how we are taught to resolve conflict. You present reality, and reality wins.
Right, because it's the foundational premise of communication. We just assume that the person across from us is operating in the same shared reality, like they're looking at the same facts and simply drawing a different conclusion.
Exactly. But what happens when you present irrefutable evidence? Like, either you both watch happen with your own eyes, and the other person looks at you with total chilling certainty and says, that didn't happen.
Yeah, that is a profoundly disorienting experience.
It really is.
Yeah.
And in this fascinating ebook we're deep diving into today called The Lies That Will Never Stop by the Jokress, the author argues that this exact reliance on logic is, well, it's why we end up trapped in these impossible loop-like arguments.
It really completely dismantles the conventional wisdom about conflict.
Yeah, and looking at the structural domains of how certain personalities lie, it can fundamentally alter how you process these relationships.
It's a huge paradigm shift.
Yeah.
The profound shift this text offers is moving the focus entirely away from what is being said to the underlying architecture of why it's being said.
Right, the why.
Exactly. To understand why logic fails, we have to look at the core concept the author presents about the nature of lying itself. I mean, think about an ordinary liar. An ordinary liar knows what the truth is, and they consciously choose to say something else.
Okay, yeah.
There is a gap, like a cognitive space, between what they know to be true and the words coming out of their mouth.
So they are deliberately hiding the truth, but they still acknowledge the truth internally.
Precisely. And because that gap exists, logic and evidence can actually work. You can catch them in that gap. You can corner them with facts until they admit what they were hiding.
Which is satisfying.
Right. But here is the foundational difference with the narcissist outlined in the source. There is no gap.
Wow. No gap at all.
None. In the moment they are speaking, their alternative reality is their reality. They genuinely believe their version of events while they are saying it, which means logic literally cannot enter the equation.
Because evidence just cannot find purchase.
Exactly. You aren't arguing with a liar in the traditional sense. You are arguing with someone who inhabits a completely different reality.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because it's like trying to use an Apple TV remote on a toaster.
I love that analogy.
Right? You can point it. You can press the buttons as logically and forcefully as you want. You can even read the manual on how the remote works. But you're operating on a system that simply cannot receive the signal.
Yeah.
The toaster doesn't have Bluetooth. The hardware just isn't there.
The hardware analogy is incredibly apt here. And if we look at the bigger picture, the author explains why that hardware is missing. For the narcissistic ego, admitting the truth, admitting fault or being ordinary or being wrong, it brings on a level of shame that is psychologically catastrophic.
Catastrophic. Like, it's not just uncomfortable.
Right. The ego literally cannot survive it. So if we understand that the logic fails because the truth would destroy their internal architecture, we can, finally stop trying to walk through a door that simply doesn't exist.
Which is such a massive relief, honestly. You can finally just put the remote down.
Exactly. Put it down.
But if their ego requires this constant, desperate protection, which I think the author calls supply, right?
Yes, supply.
How do they keep people around to provide it? I mean, the ebook details how they construct a relationship dynamic that securely feeds them, starting with lies designed purely for maintenance. And the first one is just brutal to deconstruct.
The love declaration.
Yeah, the overwhelming, I love you more than life.
Right. The text notes that in the beginning of these dynamics, these declarations are so intense, a partner might be told they are entirely unique, exceptional, that the person has never, ever felt this way before.
Which feels amazing to hear.
Of course it does. But the author draws a stark distinction between loving a person and loving a resource. According to this framework, narcissists don't love people. They love what people provide.
So, like, the function they serve.
Exactly. They love the emotional energy, the domestic labor, the financial stability, or even just the social status of having a specific partner on their arm. While a partner is providing that resource smoothly, the love they feel is real to them, but they are loving the feeling the resource produces, not the person providing it.
So you are the source, not the subject.
Exactly. You are the source.
Wait, I have to push back on this a little bit.
Okay, go for it.
Because I can understand that in a new relationship, right? The honeymoon phase. But let's say a couple has been together for years. Let's say they've been married for 2 decades, raised kids together, lived in the same house.
Yeah.
How is it functionally possible that someone doesn't actually know their partner of 20 years as a subject?
I know it's a really heavy concept to digest. But the author argues that knowing someone, like truly knowing them, it requires a genuine curiosity about their interior life.
Okay.
It requires wanting to understand their fears, their unexpressed preferences, how their history shaped their worldview. But a narcissist, structurally, only has one primary subject, and that's themselves.
Right. Everyone else is just the audience.
Or the supporting cast.
Yeah.
So even after 2 decades, they don't know who their partner actually is. They only know the role that partner plays in their life. And a role, by definition, is replaceable.
Oh, wow. That distinction between being loved as a specific complex person versus being loved for a functional role, I mean, that changes the entire context of a relationship.
It changes everything.
So if they've secured someone as a resource through this intense idealization, what happens when they inevitably drop the ball or cause harm? Because we do see them apologize.
Yes, the accountability performance.
Right, the accountability performance. I take full responsibility. And people in these dynamics often report that the apologies are incredibly convincing. There are tears, there's deep remorse, a detailed list of what they did wrong.
And those tears and the detailed confessions, they feel like a massive breakthrough, right? But the source drops the hammer on the mechanics of this performance. For an apology to be a genuine reckoning, it requires what psychologists call effective empathy.
Effective empathy.
Okay, right. You have to be able to actually feel in your own body the emotional impact your actions had on another person. The text asserts that narcissists have severely limited access to effective empathy.
So they can't feel it.
No. They might have cognitive empathy, meaning they intellectually understand that a partner is crying and why they're crying, but they cannot feel the partner's pain.
So what is actually happening in their body when they are crying and apologizing so profusely? Like, what are they feeling?
Panic. Pure panic.
Really? Just panic.
Pure panic about losing the supply. The relationship has slipped. The resource is at risk. So the apology isn't a moral reckoning with their behavior. It's a tactical maneuver to regain control of the situation.
Oh.
Yeah, in their internal reality, they are never actually at fault. It's the partner's fault, or the weather's fault, or their boss's fault. The apology is just the tool required to reset the stage and get the dynamic back to where their needs are met.
Which completely explains why the harmful behavior always slowly creeps back. The apology wasn't a change in direction. It was just like a pause button.
Exactly, just a pause button.
But an apology isn't always enough to keep a partner compliant. The text outlines a secondary, far more insidious control mechanism they use to manufacture anxiety. And that's inflating their own status and creating a fandom queue of admirers, the whole "they all want me" narrative.
Oh, this mechanism is brilliant in its cruelty. We are talking about the constant, seemingly casual stories about the ex who keeps texting them, or the barista who is clearly flirting, or the coworker who is supposedly obsessed with them.
Right, or even just slightly inflating their earnings or their importance at work.
Yes, their social connections, all of it.
And the author points out this isn't just harmless bragging or insecurity, it is structural. But structurally, how does telling a partner about a flirty barista accomplish anything other than just starting a fight?
Well, it serves two highly specific functions in the dynamic. First, it generates immediate supply. When a partner gets a little jealous or protective, it confirms to the narcissist that they matter.
Okay, that makes sense.
But the second function is purely about control. Human brains are wired to react to scarcity. A partner who believes there is a queue of people waiting to take their place is a partner who feels a low-grade, constant anxiety.
And an anxious partner is a more accommodating partner.
Exactly. They don't make demands. They overlook bad behavior. Every story about an admirer is a precision instrument designed to recalibrate the partner's fear, making them work harder to maintain the relationship.
That is wild. This manufacturing competition where none actually exists just to keep the resource producing.
Yes.
But what happens when the partner stops accommodating? What happens when those maintenance lies fail, the anxiety wears off, and the partner presents undeniable facts or actually starts packing their bags to leave?
That's the tipping point.
The ebook notes that the system shifts from basic maintenance to aggressive defense. And here's where it gets really interesting. This is where we see the reality rewrite, the infamous "that never happened."
Gaslighting. It is the ultimate defense mechanism when the gap we talked about earlier threatens to close.
Now, The term gaslighting gets thrown around constantly online, usually just meaning someone is lying to make you look crazy. But the author clarifies a really counterintuitive point about this.
Hmm.
For the narcissist, gaslighting is often not a deliberate twirling the mustache manipulation tactic plotted out in advance.
Right, and this raises an incredibly important psychological point. We have to go back to the catastrophic shame at the core of this personality structure.
Okay.
If they admit to the undeniable facts of what they did, the shame tells them they are fundamentally flawed. The ego shatters. To prevent that psychological death, the brain instantly and automatically builds an alternative version of events.
An alternative
A
version.
version where they are blameless, where they are the victim, and where the partner is the one who is confused, unstable, or abusive. The gaslighting is an automatic survival mechanism.
Wait, are you saying they actually believe the rewritten reality in that moment? Because that is terrifying.
The text suggests they do. The brain creates the new reality, and they step into it fully because the alternative is ego collapse. The author phrases it in a way that is quite haunting, actually.
What do they say?
They say the partner is just collateral damage of a protection system that isn't protecting you. They aren't always doing it to the partner as a conscious strategy. They are doing it to survive, and the partner just happens to be standing in the blast radius of their altered reality.
The fog that this creates for someone analyzing the dynamic is profound. I mean, a person can't make clear, rational decisions when their memory is constantly being overwritten.
It's impossible.
And if the gaslighting doesn't work and the partner still has one foot out the door, the narcissist pulls the ultimate emergency cord. I'll change, this time is different. The promise that resets the cycle.
Yeah, it is the promise to go to therapy, to stop drinking, to finally step up and be present. And the genuinely confusing part for the partner is that the author argues the narcissist is sincere in that exact moment of crisis.
Because the threat of losing the supply is real.
Yes, the fear of abandonment is genuine. But sincerity in a moment of sheer panic does not equal the structural capacity to sustain behavioral change.
Right, because once the bags are unpacked and the relationship stabilizes, the vigilance drops.
Exactly. The supply is secure again, and they revert to the baseline. This brings the text to one of its most vital concepts, cycle geometry.
Okay, let me make sure I'm fully grasping the math on this.
Yeah.
Because the author argues that every time a partner returns after one of these crisis promises, the cycle doesn't just repeat, it changes shape.
It accelerates. With every return, the honeymoon phase, the period of good behavior gets shorter, and the devaluation phase, the return to harmful behavior and reality rewriting, it returns faster and it hits harder.
But why does it escalate like that? I mean, if they were so afraid of losing the partner, shouldn't the good behavior last longer to secure them?
Logically, yes, but structurally, the dynamic has now been proven. They know the partner will come back, so the amount of effort required to win the partner over decreases.
Oh, that makes sense.
And furthermore, underneath it all, contempt accumulates. From the narcissist's warped perspective, a partner who accepts unacceptable behavior actually loses value. Each cycle produces more contempt, eroding whatever basic respect existed in the beginning. The trajectory only moves in one direction.
It makes me think of the physics of a bouncing ball. Like when you first drop it, it bounces really high, right? That's the first idealization phase. But every time it hits the floor and bounces back up, energy is lost.
Exactly.
The peak gets lower, and the descent happens faster. It never bounces higher than the last time. It is physically impossible. It's just moving in one trajectory toward the floor.
That captures the geometry of the cycle perfectly. And the source makes a very hard point here. The cycle doesn't break because a partner finally found the right words or the perfect logical argument to explain their pain. It breaks because the cost of continuing finally exceeds the cost of leaving.
Right. So what does this all mean? If the math is that bleak and we are dealing with a system that is structurally incapable of truth, how does someone actually extract themselves?
It's the big question.
The author argues that it requires completely abandoning the logic we started this deep dive talking about. The partner has to stop trying to prove their point.
Yes. The most urgent damage that needs to be repaired isn't about the lies the narcissist told about their own actions. The ultimate damage, according to the text, is the lie that was installed about the partner.
The lie about the victim's perception.
Right. The lie that the partner's perception is faulty, that their memory can't be trusted, that they are the unstable one in the dynamic.
The real tragedy is that people in these dynamics are often convinced that their own brain is a broken instrument. The practical reorientation the ebook offers is a core directive. Watch the actions. Ignore the words.
Such a powerful directive.
It really is. A sincere, tearful apology while someone has their hand on the doorknob is not reliable information. The pattern of their behavior across 6 ordinary non-crisis months, that is the information.
To anchor to that information, the tactical advice from the source becomes crucial. The author strongly advocates for keeping records, keeping a journal. But the framing is vital here. A partner cannot keep this journal as ammunition to show the narcissist.
But wait, wouldn't you want to use the journal to finally prove them wrong? If you have the dates and quotes written down, doesn't that close the case?
It feels like it should, right? But bringing that journal to an argument is just playing the toasters game again.
Oh, right.
If someone tries to capture them in a lie with notes, they are just going to trigger the narcissist's survival mechanism. The ego will feel threatened, and the partner will get hit with intense aggression and a new wave of gaslighting.
Which just makes everything worse.
Exactly. Attempting to catch them actually just provides them with more supply, because it shows they are still successfully controlling the partner's emotional state.
So the journal isn't a weapon, it's an anchor for the person writing it. A partner writes down the date, what was said, what actually happened, and how they felt. Because when the gaslighting fog rolls in 2 weeks later and they are told a conversation never happened, they can look at their own handwriting. It restores the authority of their own perception.
Yes, and the validating message running through this entire section of the text is incredibly powerful for anyone analyzing their own past relationships. The author insists the partner was never actually confused.
They weren't confused.
No. Their nervous system, their gut feeling, that physical sense of unease they kept pushing down, it was reporting accurately the whole time. They were just living in a deliberately manufactured fog designed to override their own internal alarm bells.
Which means someone escaping this dynamic doesn't have to learn how to perceive reality all over again. They just have to give themselves permission to trust the equipment they already have.
Precisely.
But the author doesn't just leave you with the theory. They make it clear that the fog doesn't just instantly lift because you learned a new psychological concept. The trauma of having your reality systematically denied is stored in the body.
Cognitive understanding is rarely enough to heal structural emotional damage. The nervous system becomes wired for hypervigilance. The brain is constantly bracing for the next reality rewrite. The back half of the ebook shifts entirely into practical application to address this physiological toll.
What's interesting is that the tools provided are incredibly specific. For instance, the text details a 9-round EFT tapping protocol. For those unfamiliar, EFT stands for Emotional Freedom Techniques.
Right.
It's a somatic practice, meaning it's based on the connection between the physical body and the mind. The author explains that when you are constantly gaslit, your amygdala, the fear center of the brain, is constantly firing.
And the tapping protocol works by physically tapping on specific meridian points on the body while verbalizing the specific lies that were absorbed. Structurally, this sends a calming signal to the amygdala, interrupting the fight-or-flight response.
So it literally calms the brain down.
Yes, it allows the brain to process the memory of the lie without the overwhelming physiological panic that usually accompanies it. It reconnects the cognitive truth with physical safety.
It's literally reprogramming the nervous system. And the text pairs this somatic work with 10 deep shadow work prompts. Now, shadow work can sound a bit esoteric, but the author uses it very practically. It's about exploring the unconscious parts of ourselves.
Very much so.
The prompts are designed to help a reader safely explore the specific vulnerabilities, like the hooks that made them want to believe the narcissist's lies in the first place.
This is a crucial step. It is not about victim blaming. It is about self-discovery. If a person can understand why the "I love you more than life" lie was so intoxicating to them, perhaps due to childhood emotional neglect or previous relationship trauma, they remove the hook.
And the narcissist loses their leverage.
Exactly.
And to solidify that new baseline, the ebook includes 101 reprogramming questions. These aren't just affirmations. They are analytical questions meant to fundamentally shift a person's baseline of security going forward. They train the brain to start reading behavioral patterns rather than listening to the words people say.
It's a comprehensive toolkit for transitioning out of the fog and rebuilding self-trust from the ground up.
Yeah, it really is.
If we pull all of the theory and the practical application together, there is a profound distinction the author makes near the end of the text that anchors the entire work. There is a massive, life-altering difference between accepting that someone cannot change and accepting that you cannot change them.
Wait, let me make sure I'm understanding the author's logic there, because those sound almost identical at first glance.
They do, but they are very different. Accepting that someone cannot change is a factual observation about them. It's recognizing the structural deficit, the missing hardware,
Right.
but accepting that you cannot change them is a factual observation about you. It relieves the partner of the burden of the repair project. It is the realization that no amount of perfectly articulated logic, endless patience, or undeniable evidence will rewire another human being's survival mechanisms.
Wow.
What becomes available to a person in their own life with their own energy when they finally stop trying to be the one who breaks through a wall that has no door.
You get your life back.
Exactly.
If you are analyzing a dynamic in your own life, and you want to move from simply understanding this pattern intellectually to actively breaking it and reprogramming your nervous system, the practical section of this text is essential. Check out the description of this deep dive for more details on how to explore the EFT tapping protocols, the shadow work prompts, and the reprogramming techniques we just analyzed. You don't have to stay in the fog.
It all comes back to realizing that the gap between reality and their words isn't a puzzle to be solved with better logic. It's a structural void.
Stop pointing the remote at the toaster. Put it down, walk away, and trust what you see. You have always known.